Gonna give you 3, 2, 1.
Yes,
Yep, you can see me now.
it's live. So when he comes, yes, he's showing the presentation, and he has a remote control. You're the public speaking class.
Sorry, what?
You're the public speaking class.
Oh, yeah, yeah. How are you? Oh, sorry, I
Alhamdulillah,
see
how
you.
are you?
How are you doing? What grade are you in now?
I'm in 12th grade.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
You applied for colleges and everything.
I did, yes.
You're gonna hear back in March?
Yeah, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah. Okay.
Thank you.
Wait, why did you hand me this? No, this gets taller. Just take some more space.
So it's here, but it's up to you if you
Oh,
want to change or not.
yeah, sure. Yeah. Are you staying for the whole evening?
Otherwise, Shaykh will take it. It's very near for us from the street.
Okay, I'll do it. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Okay, you're streaming right now. Sure.
لغا دي hotspot.
Got it. Actually, do me a favor. If you can set this up, I'm gonna just show the audience here.
Okay. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. So, inshallah, I would like you to get seated, feel comfortable, and I would like our brothers in the back to come and sit down, inshallah. Very important. And inshallah, today you're gonna witness something beautiful and good, and inshallah we're gonna have more of this to come. Inshallah, next time your children will be on the stage. Alhamdulillah, may Allah reward the MCA for opening their doors for Tawassul, our organization, which is a youth organization that's been running as a program from 2014, 2019. It became an organization. Alhamdulillah, we've been focusing on teaching our kids public speaking, giving them a chance to speak. It always sounds funny to me that when we talk about the youth, but we never give them a chance to speak. But some way, somehow, we built the masjid for them, we did everything. And the youth shall be educated first, definitely, taught first, definitely. They can't speak just out of their head. But they shall be also given the chance to speak. Because if they have a chance to speak right now about their faith and explain it and defend it, when they grow older, inshallah, they will do that. It creates an ownership. When you stand up and talk about Islam, Islam is no more the problem of the Shaykh. Islam is my problem. Meaning, my issue to stand up for, my issue to defend, my issue to embrace. It's my issue now, my cause, not only just the cause of the Shaykh. Let the Shaykh learn Islam and defend Islam. Unless you give the youth a chance to speak, then they will not. And alhamdulillah, I really hope that inshallah you pay attention. Assalamu alaikum, brother. Please, can you come and sit down? Please, Jazakallah. Please come forward and sit down. Unless you want to leave, you can leave. You want to stay, sit down. It's the sunnah of the Prophet. You will either all stand up or we all sit down. Alhamdulillah. So, their speeches, I really hope that you pay attention because we prepared it together. So whatever I was going to say, they're going to say it and they're going to say it better. And they have it also their own research. So they have their own twist, their own thing that I have checked with them. Alhamdulillah, We had another run like this yesterday at West Valley, the Saratoga Masjid, at our location in Los Gatos. So inshallah, this is the second run. Inshallah, tonight it will be better. We're hoping that we're going to run for an hour, inshallah. Then I guess pizza will arrive. Then you can eat. Then we will run for another hour or less. Then Salat al-Isha will hit. Then after that, we'll come and finish. So I know you cannot sit down for a long time. So I'm trying to give you breaks and in the middle. But believe me, inshallah, today will be anything but boring. So please help us. And if we can help cut all the conversations, inshallah, that would be fantastic. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. So what's at issue today? We're talking about Prophet Isa alayhi salam, from birth to ascension. And before I talk about the story of Prophet Isa alayhi salam, I will recite to you ayat from Surah Maryam, which we will be dealing with a lot today. And inshallah after that, because it's always barakah to start with the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كافها يا عين صاد ذكر رحمة ربك عبده زكريا إذ نادى ربه نداء خفيا قال رب إني وهن العظم مني واشتعل الرأس شيبا ولم أكن بدعائك رب شقيا وإني خفت الموالي من ورائي وكانت امرأتي عاقرا فهب لي من لدنك وليا يرثني ويرث من آل يعقوب واجعله رب رضيا يا زكريا إنا نبشرك بغلام اسمه يحيى لم نجعل له من قبل سميا. So, very interesting that every time Allah wants to tell the story of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, Allah does not start with talking about Isa alayhi salam. Allah goes back 2 generations back from the grandparents before he talks about the parents and before he talks about Isa alayhi salam. And we have to pay attention to that because the presentation of the Quran is very important. How Allah tells the story. And what is interesting, twice in Surah Al Imran and in Surah Maryam, before Allah spoke about Isa alayhi salam, in Surah Al Imran, Allah started by talking about Imran and his wife. And Allah is talking about Maryam, then after Maryam, Isa. In the Surah of Maryam, Allah started talking about Zakaria and his wife, then Yahya, then Maryam, then Isa. So it's very interesting. Always multi-generational story. This is very important. One of the things we do, I guess it's a mistake, that we always talk about the youth, the youth, the youth, the youth. How did the youth? Did they fall from the trees? Did they come from the clouds? The youth came from parents, and the parents came from grandparents. And when Allah wanted to tell us His blessing upon us, He said, وَجَعَلَ لَكُمْ بَنِينَ وَحَفَدًا. Imam Sha'rawi from Egypt, rahmatullah alayhi, he said, that's a hint for us to understand that to have a good, healthy family, you need to have grandparents, parents, and children. Children from the grandparents, they will learn wisdom. And from the parents, they will get discipline. And from the peers, the brothers and sisters and the cousins, they will get competition. And these three elements are very important in the growth of a child. Unfortunately, right, we are here in the West, in America, and we're not having sometimes all the time, all the three generations with us. So that's why when you see an older lady or an older, I don't like to say old, but an older lady or an older man, mashallah, bring them and tell them, if you don't have your parents, can you play the role of the grandfather for my children? I don't like to use the word senior citizen. I would like to say they're senior in honor, but not meaning senior that they need to put aside. They actually need to be amongst us, and they bring so much barakah to all of us. So my greetings to all of you. Anyone, by the way, 40 or above, you're senior citizen, I'm sorry to hurt your feelings. Yeah, so you reach the age of maturity. Allah said 40 years. You reach it. So I hope we mature, inshallah, by age 40, and we become, good enough, inshallah. So interestingly, I said for us to understand the story of Isa, if Allah goes back 2 generations back, then what is the context of this story? What was happening? Because in our mind, in our imagination, oh my God, the good old times. Oh my God, the times when there were so many prophets and messengers. Oh my God, everything was amazing and beautiful. It was the perfect world. Like when we imagine the life of Prophet Muhammad, we always imagine Medina the last 5 years. Oh, Medina, Rasulullah, Sahaba, perfect, everything was amazing. I wish I was alive at the time of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Be careful. The situation that Prophet Isa alayhi salam was born, not only him, but his mother was born in, not only her, but Imran and his wife, was very similar to the situation of the world today. Palestine was under occupation by the Romans. Isa alayhi salam was born under occupation in Palestine. And you have to think with me right now, you have to put all politics aside, and you have to think that those people at that time, they were us and we were them, because they are the only Muslimin at that time. They are the only Muwahhideen. There is no Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There is not even Prophet Isa. So the chosen people at that time that Allah chose to carry the message of Tawheed are the Israelites, the children of Israel. Children of Israel went through trials and tribulations that we need to learn from, which I mentioned in Khutbah al-Jum'ah. I will mention it now really quickly because repetition will help you remember and memorize. What happened is that the Jewish community went through 2 shocks. And these shocks affected the psyche, the culture, the life, the practice of the Jews to their own religion. Something that is happening right now to us Muslims around the world, whether you live in a Muslim country or you don't live in a Muslim country, it's happening to everyone. By the way, I see sisters and brothers, if you please, there's so many seats open here, and actually the sunnah is to fill the front seat, then the next ones, then the next ones. So, alhamdulillah, we charge actually more for the first row, so you shall feel lucky to come in the first row. Alhamdulillah. You get 3 slices of pizza. Allahu Akbar wa lillahi. So, as we're saying that, mashallah, if you're looking at that, you look in the year 333 BC, before Christ, or before the Common Era. You can choose one of the two. Alexander the Great came out of Europe and invaded the entire Near East and Far East. Now, by the way, when you hear these two words, you have to know that they are Eurocentric terms. Near East to whom? To the Europeans. Far East to whom? To the Europeans, right? So, but actually, Middle East to whom? To the Europeans. But actually, if you look at the area of Palestine, to the Iraq, it's actually the middle of the world, not the middle of the East. Forget the East, it's in the middle between the East and the West, even geographically and scientifically. So what happened? From Europe, believe it or not, comes what? Alexander. And Alexander, which is called Alexander the Great, came from Macedonia. As you see here, the Greeks were here in Athens, but now we're talking about Macedonia. And this whole was the Persian Empire. Small army of Alexander ends up with a battle here against the Persians and end up defeating them here, then defeating them here, which is here the northern area of the Levant, which is Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, Jordan, the whole thing. And then he goes down and builds the first city after his name, which is Alexandria. Do we have any brothers and sisters from Alexandria? That's only one? I was about to ask that. They do amazing fish, by the way. If you haven't eaten fish cooked Alexandria way, you haven't eaten fish yet, right? Alhamdulillah. So then, very interesting here, by the way, you come to learn that there's so many Alexandrias around the world because they're named after Alexander. Now in Arabic, Al-Iskandariya. Okay. So, in a matter of 10 years, I would actually like to share with you another slide, but in a matter of 10 years, you will find that, I don't know if I'm going to succeed in that, but actually yes. So you see here, the year 324, they were still here, right? And maybe we can get this closer to you. So here, the year 334, which is, there's still the first battle here, meaning the first battle here. And then if you go and move this, actually this map is interactive, so if you hover around certain areas, it will. So as you can see here, sometimes it will open. So for example, if you open here, it will show you what happened. But if you can see here, actually, it's all the way to the year 325. So from 334 to let's say 24, why the numbers are going less? It's because we're going backward, we're not going forward. So how do we put that back into present mode? Slideshow up there? There? Yeah, thank you. Awesome. So in 10 years, gone, everything is gone. Now, what happened? He brought with him Aristotle, Plato and Aristotle and, Socrates and all of this. Aristotle was the teacher of Alexander the Great. And he came with so many set of logic and set of life and a way of life. This Helesiostos, I think it's called, which became Hellenistic in English, it was a set of a way of life, like a religion, but not really a religion, it's a philosophy, a way you live with, a standards of life. When he came and conquered Judea here, and Samaria, and all of this area at that time, the state of Israel at that time, and obviously this is area between prophets and messengers that came. You're talking about after Dawood and Sulaiman alayhi salam. So when he comes, more than half of the Jews became something called Hellenistic Jews. What does that mean? The Jews had a fitna in their deen, and they said, what is this old way of life? Women dressed like this, men dressed like that, doing this, what is that? We want, this is newer, fresher, this is freedom. philosophy, discussion, liberty, everything you want, do it. So they became impressed and they started walking away from their religion, which actually triggered that Allah sent prophets and messengers for them so to renew their faith. But this line of Hellenistic Jews never stopped existing until today, which maybe today we call them liberals or something, but it still continues. This fitna of the people who have a religion of Tawheed that live in the middle of the world, the Middle East, having a fitna, meaning like losing their faith and losing respect for their own faith, is not something that happens to us today, Muslims, with the same situation. It's actually happened to the children of Israel before us. And that's why Allah talks about the children of Israel a lot in the Quran. They are the longest nation that existed before us that believe in La ilaha illallah. And we know their prophets were actually sent by Allah. We have no doubt about that. So when we look at their history, it's the extension of our history. It's the history of muwahhideen, the people who say La ilaha illallah. So it's very important. That's why people think that there's so much talk about the children of Israel in the Quran, just for us to say, oh, how bad they are, and how bad they were, and we should hate them, and we're done. Actually, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explicitly told us in the Quran that I'm revealing to you this so that you don't end up following the same footsteps, right? And you don't end up repeating the same mistakes. Okay. I guess it's becoming a bit hot. Inshallah. So the Hellenistic Jews, and after 10 years, they say he got poisoned or killed. His kingdom got broken into small kingdoms, Alexander the Great, and that meant, so actually Egypt became under a general, Ptolemy, and it became known as Ptolemy. That became the name of actually Egypt after Alexander. And we're talking about, again, 324 moving down. Around the year 160, the religious Jews made a revolution against the liberal Jews. It became a civil war. The religious against the liberals, because they have desecrated the temple, they have brought idols in it, which means Greek idols, and it became a war, and it became known as the Maccabees War. It was a man with his two sons that actually led a very successful war against the Seleucids and liberated the Masjid al-Aqsa, but at the end, there was a compromise and a treaty, and the Seleucid king said, okay, we will leave you alone to have self-autonomy, right? Self-autonomy, you can rule over yourself. So actually, it reached to the point of the liberal Jews brought Greek idols into the temple in Palestine, into Jerusalem. That's how much things got bad. And then around 164, this war happened, and then the religious Jews took control of Jerusalem again. Now, years passed by, and the Greek Empire and the generals after Alexander, their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, it fell apart, and now we have a newcomer to the scene, the Roman Empire. So this, how the Roman Empire, this is actually a map I copied from the internet, so whatever it is, map of Roman at its greatest extent, Roman Empire at the time of Jesus, as you see. So now the Roman Empire comes and occupies Palestine from the people who used to rule it at that time. Now, there is a history of what was happening to the Jews before the Romans came, but 37 BC, 37 before Christ, alayhi salam, the Romans came and conquered Palestine. What did that result? That resulted into the people reviving this Hellenistic views, and now they're impressed with the Romans. So now we have another stressful situation. And the Jewish community, when the Romans came, there was a king there. This king was a Jew by religion, but not a Jew by race. This king was called Herod the Great. If you look at the map of Palestine, okay, wonderful. You look at the map of Palestine, this is at the time of the Romans, at the time of the birth of Isa alayhi salam. And 40 years before his birth, moving forward, from year 37 to the year -4, to the year 4, basically BC. This is how the area of Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria was divided. But what happened is actually, if you say Edomia, Edomia is southern Palestine. The Edomians got converted to Judaism by force because of a king that used to rule Judea, which is here, which is Judah, and then Samaria. So the king here, a Jewish king, attacked the south and forced a conversion. And you know, within the Jewish religion, at that time, the tradition is about actually you have to be born Jew, you cannot be converted. But in this case, they converted. Interestingly, the people that were converted by force, one of them became the king, which is Herod the Great. Herod the Great ruled by an iron fist, zero tolerance for objections. And when the Romans came, Herod was very cunning politically. He immediately allied himself with the Romans. And he told the Jews, you have to make peace with it. I'm your king, and we're going to go and be happy with the Romans, and we're going to follow their rulings, and we're not going to make problems, and anyone that opens his mouth will be killed and executed, and it's done. They say Herod the Great killed 3 of his own children and 2 of his own wives. Zero tolerance for objection. The man was bloody. But he still had more children that actually ended up ruling after his death. From 37 to year 4, before Isa alayhi salam, King Herod the Great ruled. What did King Herod do? He actually wanted to divert the attention of the people from occupation, from being under the Romans, from his own ruling, to actually easy, simple life. He wanted people to have a good time, and he thought, in his mind, which is always works, if we get people busy with the economy and easy life, they're going to stop thinking about this religious stuff. So let's create markets, let's build big malls, big roads, parks, fountains, buildings, theaters. Oh, the Romans love the theaters, right? And let's make shows and everything. That will be, inshallah, that will divert the attention of the people. Now that also went well with the Hellenistic Jews that all wanted philosophy and plays and theater, and they were not so much into the practices of the way we dress, the way we eat, the way we pray, the traditional teachings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to all the prophets of the children of Israel that they used to keep and practice, inshallah. So, for the safety of everyone else, if you inshallah can keep your masks, inshallah, as much as you can on your faces, that would be good. So, after he died, it became divided between his children. Again, so these are, you see, areas where his children, and actually one of these kingdoms were ruled by one of his daughters. The one who ruled Judea, where under Judea there is where? There's Jerusalem and Hebron, right? Al-Khalil and Al-Quds. The one who ruled is again called Herod. You can say Herod Jr. He had another name, but he became known as King Herod. That King Herod is mentioned in the Bible as, as the story of Jesus was evolving. Interestingly, most scientists believe, like historians believe, that Jesus was not born in the year 0, which is that's when he's supposed to be born, in the year 0. That's birth of Christ. But actually, he was born in the year -4, which is a bit confusing, right? But that's okay, we will go with it. So, the situation, if you were a believer at the time of Isa or Imran, Isa is not born, Maryam is not born. We have 2 in the scene that have witnessed Palestine and their country from being a free country to actually being a free country under a king that is not a good king, a liberal king, who did not care much about religion, which was already distressful. Now it became double stressful because you have a king that is liberal and doesn't care about religion, and on the top of it you have colonialism, and you have occupation. So it's a problem now. Imran and his wife and Zachariah and his wife witnessed Palestine before occupation and after occupation. I'll tell you why that's significant. My father was born 1931. My father witnessed Palestine and had a full childhood up to age 13, 14, before 1948. And then he lived as an adult life. He went to Egypt, to Cairo University, graduated from Cairo University in 1955. As one of the few engineers in Palestine who was chemical engineer and he was a geologist. He had a double major. He was amazing with science. And then he went to Jordan. So now 48 exists, but 67 is still not there. He worked for 15 to 20 years in Jordan, and he used to drive between Amman and Jerusalem. Back to Amman, back to Al Khalid, back to Amman, back to Nablus, because the West Bank was free. And my brothers, half of them were born in Jordan, half of them were born in Palestine, because it was easy movement. But then 67 happens while he was in Amman, and he gets spend the rest of his life outside, and my father is buried in 5 Pillars Farm in Livermore. So inshallah, when you go there, make dua for my father, inshallah. So what a life that he lived. He worked in most Arab world countries. In his specialty, he was very wanted by governments, meaning for his knowledge. So he would be borrowed by one government after another, and that caused me to live in most of the countries in the Arab world, right? So I know how to speak most of these accents. Anyway, now, the religious fractions at the time of Isa alayhi salam. If you were a Jewish person, which again, remember, these are the only people who say La ilaha illallah in the world. What would be the fractions of the society, right? First, if you look, you will find, number one, the Sadducees, it's different weights. It actually goes after a king, it's called Saduks. And Saduq actually means the truthful one, like Sadiq in Arabic. But he was under the Persian, when the Jews were pushed to exile into Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar, and then Cyrus brought them back to Palestine 70 years later. So this is way much before the time of Isa alayhi salam. There was a priest, and that priest also was liberal. The Sadducees were loyal to the king Herod and the Roman Empire, and they were the priests of the temple. So listen with me, the imams of the haram, meaning the priests of the haram, meaning the rabbis of the temple, were actually all sold to the king and to the Roman Empire. Something interesting is happening. You draw the comparisons in your head. Anyway, number 2, fraction, we had youth. These Jewish youth, they were so much hurt by the king and by the Romans. They wanted to fight both. They were jihadists. And their name was Sikaris. The Sikari in the Hebrew language at that time means the small dagger. They used to hide a small dagger under their shirt, and they would go next to a Roman soldier or a king soldier, take the knife and slaughter him and walk. They were professional assassinators. They used to do assassins. But they wanted change through war, through fighting. Those are the Sakaris. Then we have the separatists. Separatists here, they separated themselves. They actually went and lived in the caves and away from the cities and made small towns. Those are called Qumranis. The Qumranis left the cities and moved to the caves and to the outside the cities. They had their own communities. Something very interesting about these people that is narrated in the Jewish history, that they used to wear white, and they used to make wudu, and they used to pray in qiyam and ruku' and sujood, basically. Something about this, and these people actually wrote, if you heard about the Dead Sea Scrolls, they found it in the caves, small caves, they hid it, and they believed that this is the end of time. They were so disheartened, they left their people and they said, we're going to have to move away. Fourth religious faction is the Pharisees. The Pharisees were the mainstream religious communities. They were disheartened with the Sadducees, and they were disheartened with the situation and with the Hellenist Jews, and they were just the mainstream of rabbis that were at that time. Allahu A'lam, I don't know, but probably Sayyidina Imran alayhi salam, who was not a prophet or a messenger, was probably from the Pharisees at that time. But then there is a problem with that, because also it says that the Pharisees rejected Isa alayhi salam. So probably there was a fifth community, the very small minority of believers, like Imran and his wife, and like Zakaria and his wife, that built a community. They had students, and they had to literally protect themselves. The Jews, with this very hard situation, their country is gone. Their own king, who is Edomites from southern Palestine, they said, you're not a Jew by birth, so we don't even recognize you. You converted to Judaism. But he was Herod, the son of Herod. So, and he was approved by the Romans. Actually, later on, this Herod started playing with his tail, and the Romans removed him and put a Roman governor. That Roman governor is believed to be the one that administered actually the idea of crucifixion. Whoever was crucified, right? He was the Roman governor at that time, because Herod Jr. was not good enough. They actually took him to South France. That's how far they shipped him away. Anyway, so under this, we're gonna come now to the story of Imran and his wife. There's something very interesting, very quickly. Something that really very emotional to me, that you don't have to be a prophet or a messenger to be honorable in the eyes of Allah. Surah Ali Imran, the family of Imran. Family of Imran, Imran and his wife are not prophets. But yet there is a surah named after them. Luqman is not a prophet, yet there is a surah named after him. Maryam is not a prophet, yet there is a surah named after her. Al-Kahf, Ashab al-Kahf, the youth of the cave, none of them were prophets, but yet there is a surah named after them. And this to me shows that you don't have to be a prophet or a messenger to be honorable in the eyes of Allah. It's very interesting that the times of Isa alayhi salam and his mother and his grandparents were very stressful, just exactly like us today. And all that they had to do is stick together. So actually when you think, it's very interesting background that the society was falling apart and things were getting worse and worse and worse, from bad to worse to even more worse, right? And this family, in the middle of all of this bad situation, is getting better and better and better. If you go from Imran and his wife, amazing. I said it in Khutbah al-Jum'ah, and I'm going to say it again. If mashallah, Allah can grant one of our sisters to make an intention like this lady, the wife of Imran, please do. But before you do, let's listen to the story. Inshallah, we're going to have our first presenter to talk about the story of Imran, the wife of Imran, inshallah. And we will switch the slides from my slides, because now we're coming to the actual story. But this was the historical, geopolitical situation that was at the time of Imran and his wife. So now you can live their life. The community is divided. The king is the sellout king. The Romans are occupying, and people are in dismay. That's why they were all looking for Al-Masih, the Messiah. They want the Messiah, but how is that Messiah is going to come? Masih or Mashiach in Hebrew. Now we're going to find out, inshallah, Rabbil Alameen. But this doesn't work. So you can stand.
So before we can understand the story of Maryam alayhi salam and the miraculous birth of Isa alayhi salam, it's important to remember and understand that none of it would have happened without the piety and the righteousness of Imran and his wife, the parents of Maryam alayhi salam. So it goes back to everything that happened that Shaykh ElBakri mentioned that was going on during this time. Imran and his wife wished to have a boy because they wanted a change in the society. And they knew that change wouldn't happen without a righteous leader. So they wanted to raise a boy to become a strong leader and spread the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But many years had passed and Allah did not give them a child. Then one day the wife of Imran was walking in her garden and she saw a bird fly with food in its beak to its nest to feed its chicks. And after this is when her desire for a child increased, and there she made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have a baby. She was old, but she still made dua, and she asked Allah, if you can give this bird 4 chicks, surely you can give me one. And so Allah answered, and she became pregnant. The fact that she became pregnant at such an old age alone is a miracle and shows that Allah has very special plans for her and her future descendants. And you don't have to be a prophet to be special in the eyes of Allah, as Shaykh said. So now she's pregnant, hoping for a boy, and it says in the Quran that the wife of Imran said, Rabbi inni nadartu laka ma fi batni muharrara. Ya Allah, I vow to dedicate what is in my womb entirely to your service. So before the baby was even born, she had already determined that she would commit to raising this child in a place of worship for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And basically saying, since you answered my dua, I will show you my appreciation by raising him or her to love and worship me. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not answer her dua exactly the way she wanted. He had other plans when she delivered because she discovered that she gave birth to a girl, not a boy. Inni wada'tuha untha, wallahu a'lamu bima wada'at. Allah is fully knowledgeable of what she had given birth to. So she says, وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنثَى. The girl is just like the boy. The girl is not like the boy. So if Allah knows that she wanted and was expecting a boy, why did He choose to give her a girl? Because He wanted to show her that a girl is just like the boy in terms of worship, and having a girl would be what is best for her. And she says, وَإِنِّي سَمَّيْتُهَا مَرْيَمَ. I have named her Maryam, meaning the worshipper of God. So despite not having a boy, she still committed to her nadar, her vow, to raise Maryam alayhi salam the same way she would have raised her child if it were a boy. And Allah was able to accept her in a very special way, because in order to have a special son, Isa alayhi salam, you would have to have a special mother. So in the same ayah, the wife of Imran says, وَإِنِّي أُعِيذُهَا بِكَ وَذُرِّيَّتَهَا مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. Ya Allah, I seek your protection for her and her offspring from the evil of shaitan. And Allah granted this dua, and now Maryam and Isa are the only 2 people who were not touched by shaitan when they were born. Usually when everyone's born, they're touched by shaitan, but Isa and Maryam were not because of her. So she didn't know that Maryam would give birth the way she did, and she didn't know that Isa alayhi salam would grow up to become a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But she still made the intention to have Allah protect Maryam and her offspring. So from this story, Allah shows us that because of Imran and his wife, because of their piety, Allah honored them and blessed them in the ways that they did not expect. 1, the wife of Imran became pregnant at an old age. 2, they had a girl instead of a boy, and they did not let this fact deter them, because they knew that this is what would be best for them, and because Allah is the best of planners. And Allah accepted Imran's wife's dua, as He says, فَتَقَبَّلُهَا رَبُّهَا قُبُولًا حَسَنًا. Allah accepted Maryam graciously and blessed her. And I will give it to Maryam to talk more about her book.
MashaAllah. So please give it a hand. MashaAllah. I don't know if you paid attention, but there's 2 important points here. The mother, the wife of Imran, made this huge intention that she wanted a child, a boy, to dedicate him for the haram. Obviously, what is hidden between the words is that she wanted a leader for her people. She wanted someone that maybe through his hands, this situation can change. And it always starts with one person. Allah sent Moses, and then Harun. Allah sends Isa. Allah sends Yunus, Salih, Hud. One person is enough to change the world. Right? So she said, Ya Allah, I dedicate what's in my womb to you. Oh my God, Ya Allah,